Get lumped up tonight. Listen to Rob Rossi and Rock'n'Mine on the only podcast that I'll hear that won't make me wanna rip off my ears. Oh, the Rock Show, 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 the Rock Show. Oh, I want the Rock Show. The Rock Show, 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 the Rock Show. I want the Rock Show. Let's get lumped up.
All right, Mike. So what are we talking about today?
Okay, we're talking about Roky Erickson.
Oh, and this is episode 162 of The Rock Show.
162. Man, we're pumping them out.
Yes,
This episode's about Roky Erickson. Kind of a cultish figure in rock and roll. Not maybe super well known, but he was a very important guy when it came to like garage rock in the 60s. And also it's a very tragic story about his early life and the mental health problems he had and the fact that he was sent away for one joint, you know, by Texas. Texas had draconian drug laws back then.
Yeah.
You know, it's a sad story what happened to him. I'll go into it a little bit. And but he got what was coming to him later on in life. He had a lot of followers, a lot of fans. There was a lot of benefits for Roky. There's tribute albums for Roky Erickson with major artists on it. The 13th Floor Elevators, the band he started in the 60s, around 1965.
And they did psychedelic rock?
They were the first band to use the word psychedelic in their album.
Okay.
So historically, it's important like that because in the late 60s, that word psychedelic was all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, in the mainstream. But all right, so he was born. Erickson is his last name. His first name is Roger, and his middle name is Kynard. And they basically, his parents nicknamed him Roky, R-O-K-Y, kind of like an abbreviation between the two first names. He was born July 15th, 1947 in Dallas. Roky was the oldest kid, and he had 4 younger brothers. His father was a strict disciplinarian. Didn't have any time for boys with long hair. And supposedly him and Roky used to battle it out a lot. One time he forced a haircut on him, made him cut his hair. His mother, on the other hand, was kind of like a little bit more artistic. She was an amateur artist and an opera singer. She also kind of encouraged Rocky's musical interests that he had at a young age. Once he wanted to play guitar, and I think that his father didn't allow it and want to allow it. So his mother actually took the lessons so she could teach him. So, kind of interesting dynamic in that family. Rocky's musical interest started when he was 5. He learned how to play the piano. And by 10, he was playing guitar. He attended high school in Austin, Texas, but he dropped out of what was called Travis High School in 1965, 1 month before he was supposed to graduate, because he wouldn't cut his hair.
Damn.
He was a big Beatles fan. He wanted his hair long, and the school had a strict dress code and wasn't allowing it, so he just dropped out. Erickson wrote his most famous song, "You're Gonna Miss Me," at around age 15, and started the band with some neighborhood guys, which would kind of evolve into his first real band, which was the Spades.
Spades.
Okay. The Spades scored a regional hit with the song "We Sell Soul," which would later be done as "Don't Fall Down" once he got the 13th Floor Elevators together. That would be on their debut album. The Spades' original version of "You're Gonna Miss Me" was featured on the garage rock compilation Pebbles Volume 1. Now, yeah, I'm a big fan of the Pebbles collections. There's also a collection called Nuggets, which is really good. But with Pebbles, they got even more obscure. I don't know where they found some of these people, man. They had one single, and they put it on the compilation. The Pebbles stuff came out, I believe, in the early 80s, and I think there's something like 30-something of them now, 40-something of them now. Very good stuff. In late 65, at age 18, Erickson co-founded the 13th Floor Elevators. Now, he and bandmate Tommy Hall were the main songwriters. Early in her career, Janis Joplin was considering joining the 13th Floor Elevators.
Wow.
Remember, Janis was from Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. But she was persuaded to go off to San Francisco, which obviously turned out to be the best thing she could have done, because she got world famous pretty much right away.
But she went down there, didn't she, like, hang out with the Family Cat, something like that?
Family Dog. Family Dog was the name, yeah. And they convinced her to go up to San Francisco. That's where everything was happening. This was the summer of love, that time, and a little bit before that. And she would hook up with the holding company, Big Brother and the holding company and all that. We should do a show on Janis Joplin. What do you think?
I think it'll be fine. You should.
Yeah, I think we'll do that coming up soon.
Part of the 26 Club?
27 Club.
Oh, 27 Club. That's what it is.
27 Club. Yeah. She checked out at 27.
Let me ask you a question. What they also call it they call it acid rock. Can you explain to people what the hell acid rock is? It's rock that you drop acid?
Yeah. Acid rock was an expression. It was an expression in the late 60s, early 70s for psychedelic music. Things like Iron Butterfly and Agata Davida, that would be acid rock. Okay. Just stuff that you want to trip to, right. And it was a big thing back then. Still is. People still do that shit.
Yeah.
Now, the band 13th Floor Elevators released the psychedelic sounds of the 13th Floor Elevators in October of 1966. It contained the band's only charting single, Erickson's "You're Gonna Miss Me." Okay, even though he did that with the Spades would kind of morph into the 13th Floor Elevators, do it, and they would record it again. It ended up a major hit on local charts in Texas and most of the Southwest, and it appeared at lower positions on the chart nationally. It's considered a breakthrough in garage rock. basically because the way Roky sings it, it's like screaming, and the way he wails through it, and his harmonica work on it. Okay. The album was produced by Leland Rogers, and the title with the word psychedelic in it, like I said in the beginning, it's the first time it's regarded, as far as we know, it's regarded as the first time that word was ever used on a record. Now, that album came out in October, and I believe the following month you had Psychedelic Lollipop by the Blues Magoos, and there's a couple other bands, but they beat it. They beat it by a month. In 1967, the band would follow up the first album with an album called Easter Everywhere. Now, it's a slightly more focused album. They were a little bit more focused on a sound and topics to sing about. It featured a track called Slip Inside This House, and it was an 8-minute song that they reduced down to a single for about 4 minutes. The B-side of this was a song called Splash One, which is an amazing song. And it was covered recently on Greg Prevost's album, his most recent collection. Greg was the singer to the Chesterfield Kings. He does a great cover of Splash One. The album was again produced by Leland Rogers, and another notable track on there was their cover of Bob Dylan's "It's All Over Now, Baby Blue."
Yep.
All right, on that, which is another great song. The third album, and keep in mind, they kind of had like a bit of a cult following in the country, especially in the Southwest.
Yeah.
Very different kind of band. Definitely that first album should be in everybody's collection, as far as I'm concerned, because it's just such a strong rock record. The third album was called Live, okay, and it was released in 1968. Now, it was advertised as a live recording, but it's bullshit. It was they dubbed in crowd noises and clapping and cheering. It was totally faked. But it really, the band's label, which was called International Artists, were really just trying to make money off this. The band really didn't have any input. It just showed up one day that they had a live album, and there was very little band cooperation with it. Most of the tracks are actually cover songs on this album and some older material that they hadn't used before. And it's really considered a subpar record. It's really not worth your time.
Okay.
I've listened to it. It's weird because when you realize everything is fake, it's kind of funny, listening to it. But it's just not a good album. But
funny.
Yeah. Now, it wouldn't be the first time that would happen either by different bands. Bull of the Woods would be the next one, released in 1969, was the final 13th Floor Elevators album that they worked on as a group. Erickson, however, was only involved on a few tracks, including Living On and May the Circle Remain Unbroken, excuse me. The album was the one following what was the beginning of Rocky's health problems and legal problems. Guitarist Stacey Sutherland was the driving force on this record. He was the one that was putting it out, really pushing for it. And Roky really was not well enough to participate. Now, What happened to him in 1968, while performing at the Hemisphere in Texas, Erickson began speaking in gibberish. He just started making no sense when he was talking.
Yeah.
And he was soon diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic. And he was sent to the Houston Psychiatric Hospital, where he involuntarily received electroshock therapy. Okay. The Elevators were very local. They were very vocal about drug use. They advocated marijuana use as a band and LSD use. And sometimes it would catch the attention of law enforcement. They give them a hard time. In 1969, Erickson was arrested for possession of a single joint in Austin, Texas.
That's crazy.
One joint, okay? Now, facing a potential 10-year jail sentence, he pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, okay? And that was to avoid going to jail. But he was sent to the Austin State Mental Hospital, okay? And after several times he escaped from there, he was then sent to the Rusk State Mental Hospital in Rusk, Texas. It was a more maximum security kind of place that he couldn't break out of. And again, he was forced to get electroshock therapy. Now, you know, we've talked about this. I know Lou Reed had it. Okay, we mentioned that in a couple episodes. Electroshock therapy fucks with your memory big time. And you can't remember.
So bad.
Yeah, especially your short-term memory or really all your memory. He was also given Thorazine treatments during his custody there until 1972. Now, during his time at Rusk, Roky continued to write poetry and music, and family and friends did manage to smuggle out some of the poetry that he wrote. And it became a self-published book in 1972 called Openers by Roky Erickson. And they intended on using the profits to this to help him with his legal and medical bills. Okay. Supposedly 1,000 copies of this book was made, but it's really unknown how many was sold. Very rare if you can get your hands on it. Very rare piece of literature. 6 tracks from the 1999 Roky Erickson collection called Never Say Goodbye were also recorded during his time at Rusk. Okay. In 74, which is interesting because it said that he recorded them during his time there. I wonder how he was able to do that. Right?
He probably had like a tape recorder and stuff like that.
Yes. Yeah. So in 74, after he was released from the hospital, Roky formed a new band, which he called Bleeb Alien. Bleeb Alien. Okay, and Bleeb, there's a couple ways they look at it. Bleeb's an anagram for Bible. Okay, if you twist the words around, you can get bleeb. But it's also a German word, okay, which means remain, and then alien, which, you know, if you take the word alien, add an L, Allien, in German it means alone. So the band Bleeb Alien meant remain alone.
Alone.
Okay, yeah. Now, his new band traded the psychedelic sound of the 13th floor elevators for a more hard rock kind of sound. And it had tracks like Two-Headed Dog, okay? There was a lot of like horror themes, horror movies, sci-fi themes. I Walked with a Zombie. That's another one, okay? Now, there was a band called the Sir Douglas Quintet, and Doug Sam from that band produced the record for Roky, okay? And the band would be renamed shortly after Roky Erickson and the Aliens, okay? That Bleeb Alien wasn't cutting it, okay? Now, Two-Headed Dog I got to mention because there was a guy named Vladimir Demikaus who was a Russian scientist. And he did in the 1950s these like transplants of dog heads. Okay,
how crazy is that?
Putting 2 heads on a dog. Okay, and he did this in Russia. Okay, at the time, the Soviet Union. And so there's a lyric in there in that song "Two-Headed Dog" where he's like, you know, I'm doing experiments in the Kremlin on a 2-headed dog, like that.
That's great. That's great song.
Yeah, it is. So, like I said, the new band will be called Roky Erickson and the Aliens. And in 1979, after playing with the reversible chords at Raoul's, which was a club in Austin, Stu Cook, who was the former bass player to Creedence Clearwater Revival, connected with Roky, and they released 2 records back to back. The first was called Roky Erickson and the Aliens, and that was on Columbia, released in the UK in 1980. And then there's one called Roky Erickson and the Aliens, The Evil One. And that was recorded for 415 Records in 1981. So he had like an English label and an American label. Instead of having just one label, he had 2. Now, Stu Cook, played bass on 2 tracks. One track called Sputnik and one track called Bloody Hammer. And Roky performed with the Nerve Breakers as his backup band at the Palladium in Dallas in July of 1979. A live recording of this was issued on the French New Rose label and recently has been re-released. You can get it again. So the band that Roky played with the most was a band called The Explosives, and they kind of served as his most frequent backup band. This was during the club era when he was playing Raoul's and a few other clubs in the late 70s and early 80s. It's interesting. Austin, to this day, has a vibrant music scene, and that was really when it was starting back. They always did, even going back to the 13th floor elevator days in the 60s. But as time went on, you have the South by Southwest festival and all that stuff there. It's become like a mecca for underground music. Now, and I've never been there. I should go there.
You should go there.
Yeah, do a podcast from there one, maybe South by Southwest. So the band was called Roky Erickson and the Explosives, and they were regulars at Raoul's, the Continental Club, other Austin venues. It was this lineup that contributed to the first Live at Raoul's LP. It was like a compilation that played there, and they contributed 2 tracks to that record. That album came out in 1980, I believe. In 1982, Roky asserted to people, he started telling people that a Martian was inside his body. Okay, that he was inhabited by a Martian. He came to feel basically that due to being an alien, that people were trying to attack him physically. So a concerned friend of his tried to convince him that he was okay. So what he did was he enlisted a notary public to witness an official statement, sign off on it, stamp it, that Erickson was in fact an alien. Okay, it was a statement made by Roky, and they were hoping that if there was any kind of like international laws that might be broken or anything that could trick Roky into thinking that with this statement, it was all going to be okay by putting this official statement out. Yeah. And it actually worked. It actually worked because once he put the statement out, he didn't think anybody was attacking him anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's funny how the mind can play tricks, right?
He was a strange fucking guy.
Well, if you had electroshock therapy and you were already an acid head on top of that, you know what I'm saying? That's not good, man. Acid scrambles you anyway. So he was probably scrambled, but maybe not so bad. And I'm sure whatever they did, it just made it a lot worse. Now, beginning in 1980, Erickson developed an obsession with the mail. He would spend hours going over junk mail. Okay. Don't know if he was looking for messages or signals or something, okay, in the junk mail. He also wrote to celebrities, sometimes dead ones, and other solicitors, and he would get things back, and he was obsessed with receiving the mail. He got arrested late in 1989 for charges of mail theft for neighbors that he knew had moved, and if they had mail still coming, he would take it. Okay. And what he would do is he would put this mail all over the walls of his bedroom. Okay. Now he got arrested, but they dropped the charges because he was able to show that he never actually opened these letters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they I'm sure they could have got him just for stealing it, but they dropped the charges altogether. Now, in 1984, a documentary was produced in Austin for Swedish TV. Okay, it was going to be called Demon Angel: A Day and Night with Roky Erickson, and it featured Erickson in electric and acoustic performances, sometimes solo, and sometimes with local musician / producer Mike Alvarez playing an additional guitar. They filmed it in an underground creek near the Congress Street Bridge on Halloween in Austin. Alvarez later released the film on VHS and added some interviews with Rocky's family and friends at the end.
Wow.
That was like the real first tribute to him, in any good way. Again, he was a strong cult character, he wasn't in selling a lot of records, but he played a lot of shows. The movie that was made was toured to several cities, including Pittsburgh, where the screening was followed by a set of Erickson's songs by Alvarez himself and others. Roky was not there, okay, but there was a performance by a band called the Mount McKinleys with vocalist Sumner Erickson, who was Rocky's brother, Sumner. Okay, soundtrack for this film, was released on CD, and it got very positive reviews. Rocky always got good critical acclaim. Now, several live albums of his older material have been released since the mid-'80s. In 1990, Sire Records released a tribute album called Where the Pyramid Meets the Eye. And it was a tribute to Roky Erickson, produced by Warner Brothers executive Bill Bentley. And it featured versions of Erickson's songs performed by the Jesus and Mary Chain, REM, ZZ Top, Bongwater, John Wesley Harding, Doug Sam, and Primal Scream, among others. According to the liner notes,
that's an all-star cast. Yeah.
That was an all-star cast. Yeah, definitely. He was, his music was very well appreciated among musicians as well. Okay. According to the liner notes, the title of the album came from a remark that Roky made to a friend one time who had asked him to define what psychedelic music is or was. Okay. Yeah. So Roky had replied, "It's where the pyramid meets the eye, man." It's an apparent reference to the Eye of Providence. Yeah. And the Great Seal of the United States. The pyramid on a dollar.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Right. So in 1995, Erickson released All That Made Do My Rhyme. And it was on Butthole Surfer drummer King Coffee's label called Trance Syndicate Records. It was produced by Texas Tornadoes bassist Speedy Sparks. Also, Austin recording legend Stuart Sullivan and Texas Music Office director Casey Monahan was involved in the production. The release coincided with the publication of another book called Openers 2, another book of the complete collection of his lyrics, all of Rocky's lyrics, and I believe some poetry was in there as well. It was published by Henry Rollins 21361 Publications, and it was compiled by and edited by Casey Monahan with the assistance of Henry Rollins and Rocky's youngest brother, Sumner. Now, Sumner was granted legal custody of Roky in 2001 and established a legal trust to help out his brother. So as a result, Roky started having a lot of legal entanglements untangled. He was also getting the best medical care that he had gotten in his life.
Wow.
Right. And things were starting to look up for him because he was getting some royalties that he was owed from the past. He had a lot of contractual issues that were worked out. All he really needed was the right kind of lawyers, which he was able finally to get
Yep.
with some money that was coming in. And he even was able to get off of some of his meds. Okay.
Wow.
A documentary about Rocky's life was made in 2005 by director Kevin McAllister and screened at the South by Southwest Festival that year. And it got good reviews.
Oh, yeah.
At the Austin City Limits Music Festival, Roky performed his first full-length concert in 20 years. And using the Explosives band again as backup, he put on an amazing show, which included special guest performance by Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, by December 30th, 2005, Roky had played 11 gigs in that year and had weaned himself off most of his meds. He also got a driver's license and bought a Volvo, bought a car, and he voted for the first time, too.
Jesus Christ, he's growing up.
Yeah, he's growing up. Now, in 2007, Erickson played his first ever gig in New York City. I was at this show. He played Southpaw in Brooklyn.
Wow.
Okay, very good show. I remember being there. And he also did the Coachella Festival in California that year and made a debut performance in England for the first time at the Royal Festival Hall in London. Roky also did a couple other gigs in some European countries at the same time. In September 2008, he collaborated with the Scottish band Mogwai for their Bat Cat EP, and he plays on the track called Devil Rides. He also played with the Austin indie rock band O'Kerval River. In 2009, he played the South by Southwest Festival again, and he also collaborated with the Austin band The Black Angels, rehearsing and performing 13th elevator songs that hadn't been done in many, many years. They were trying to get some of those older tracks out there to the fans.
Wow.
On April 20th, 2010, Erickson released True Love Cast Out All Evil, his first album of new material in 14 years. O'Kerval serves as Erickson's backing band on this record. In March of 2012, Erickson toured Australia and New Zealand for the first time, and he headlined the Golden Plains Festival and sold out shows in Sydney and Melbourne. So he was doing well down under.
Yeah, so this guy was pretty popular. He might not have, but he worked all his life there.
Yeah, well, he did, and he had a live presence, okay, on the scene, especially in Texas.
Yeah.
But as time went on, by the 90s and 2000s, he was recognized internationally as well, and he was starting to be well known, more well known than he had ever been. Now, on May 10th, 2015, he performed with the reunited 13th Floor Elevators.
Wow.
At a festival called Levitation, which was a name of a song that they used for the name of the festival, and he headlined that festival.
Wow.
The band consisted of original band members Roky Erickson, Tommy Hall, also John Ike Walton and Ronnie Leatherman. Rocky's son Jaeger Erickson was on harmonica, and Rocky's lead guitarist Eli Southard and rhythm guitarist Fred Mitchum was all part of that.
So they had a pretty big crew.
Yeah. And Roky would, for the next few years, Roky would do shows here and there. He'd pop up here and there. But sadly, on May 31st, 2019, it was announced that he passed away in Austin.
Yeah. Now,
his death was made public through a Facebook page. I remember reading this. His brother, Mikkel, who wrote, "My brother Roky passed away peaceably today. Please allow us time." And then to this date, no cause of death has ever been given.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the end of his life. He was, I think he was about not even 70.
71.
71. Yeah, 71. So, tough life for the guy, but he started to get some recognition in the last few years of his life, and he deserved it. And anything that you see out there by Roky Erickson and the Aliens or the Explosives, pick it up. And the 13th Floor Elevators, definitely get the first album. Well, get all of them. They're all good, except that fake live one. But the other 3 albums are excellent. Easter Everywhere is a good record. Has that track Splash One.
Nice.
Different kind of experience listening to it. I think it stands the test of time. Sometimes when you listen to stuff from that era, it sounds very dated, but this does not. 13th Floor Elevator's first record is as good today as it ever was. And just as a side note, You're Gonna Miss Me is Poison Ivy from the Cramps' favorite song of all time.
Wow.
Okay. So from a band that had, garage rock roots, rockabilly roots, garage rock roots, she knew what she was talking about when she said that. You're Gonna Miss Me is a great track.
All right. That's good.
That's all I got today for you, Rob.
All right. So, Mike, how can we locate you if we need to find you?
Okay, I'm all over social media. You could find me on Instagram, RockerMike212. I'm on Twitter as RockerMike212. I'm on CloutHub, MeWe, Getter, Truth Social, all as Rocker Mike. And I'm also on Facebook as Rocko Mike. I've told you many times why that is, Rocko Mike.
Yes.
And of course, always go to the Rockshow podcast group page. I'm always posting songs of the day, songs of the night, little tidbits during the day. Feel free to join, participate, add stuff to the page. How about you, Rob? Where can we find you?
You can find me at any outlet that's getting lumped up. You look Getting Lumped Up, the first thing that pop up, and you'll see my big head. And there you can find me in all social media: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, and everything else, whatever other stuff that they have. And
Right.
Mike, I gotta tell you, another exciting show. This is episode 162.
I'm excited about the next 2 shows coming up. We're going to be talking about the Australian bands, the Saints, who sadly lost their singer, Chris Bailey, recently, and a band called Radio Birdman, which everybody should check out.
Yeah,
Radio Birdman's a great band.
And I'd like to thank our sponsor again, Park
Dental
Care, for the fabulous work, the great dentist, and anytime you go there, you will live with a smile.
And he takes all insurance.
And it takes all insurance. So thank you to them. And remember, people, don't get drunk.
Get lumped up.
See you next time.
Take care, people.
Get lumped up tonight. Listen to Rob Rossi and Rocker Mike on the only podcast that I'll hear. That won't make me wanna rip off my ears.